In a world that never stops talking, silence has become a superpower. We live surrounded by noise. Notifications ping on our phones. Social media feeds scream for our attention. Everyone has an opinion and everyone wants to share it, all the time. But in this constant storm of words, have we forgotten the profound strength that lies in stillness? Have we lost the art of simply being quiet and observing? True power isn't always found in the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes, it's found in the calm, centered presence that listens more than it speaks. It's the quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce its arrival. Think about the most powerful forces in nature. A deep river flows with silent strength, carving its path through solid rock over time. The sun rises without a sound, yet it brings light and warmth to the entire world. These forces don't shout to be noticed. Their impact speaks for them. In our own lives, we can learn from this. We can learn to harness the energy we so often waste on needless words, on explaining ourselves, on seeking validation from others. This energy, when conserved, can be channeled into focused action, deep thinking, and meaningful connections. Silence is not emptiness. It is a space for wisdom to grow. The journey toward harnessing this power is not about becoming mute or withdrawn. It is about becoming intentional. It's a conscious choice to trade reactive chatter for thoughtful observation. It means understanding that every word you speak has weight, and that some moments are better served by your attentive presence than your immediate opinion. When you learn to be comfortable in your own silence, you create a space for others to truly be heard. You become a mirror, reflecting clarity back to a chaotic world. This is the first step toward building a life of purpose and profound influence, a life where your presence is felt long before your voice is heard. This is the story of Aarav, a young man who journeyed from being a constant talker to a master of silent influence. His transformation holds a mirror up to our own habits. It shows us how the simple act of holding back, of choosing our words with care, can completely reshape how the world sees us, and more importantly, how we see ourselves. Aarav's path from a predictable open book to a wise, unreadable leader is a testament to the quiet power that resides within each of us. It's a power waiting to be unlocked, not by saying more but by understanding the immense value of saying less. Aarav's college days were a whirlwind of noise, and most of it came from him. He was the life of every party, the first to raise his hand in class and the one who always filled any awkward silence with a story or a joke. He believed that to be liked, to be seen, to be relevant, he had to be constantly contributing. He wore his heart on his sleeve and shared every thought that popped into his head. He told his friends about his dreams, his fears, his family drama, and his latest crush. He thought this vulnerability made him relatable and trustworthy. He was an open book, and he invited everyone to read him from cover to cover. But this constant stream of information had an unintended effect. His friends started to see him as predictable. They knew how he would react to any situation because he had already told them 100 times. His advice, though often well-intentioned, began to feel cheap because it was given so freely and so frequently. In group projects, his endless brainstorming often drowned out quieter, more thoughtful ideas. People would nod along, but they weren't truly listening. They had tuned him out, placing his words in the category of background noise rather than valuable insight. His presence was energetic, but it wasn't powerful. He craved respect, but he was getting something closer to friendly tolerance. He noticed that the people he admired most, a quiet professor, a focused team captain, were not the loudest. They spoke rarely, but when they did, the entire room would fall silent to listen. Their words carried weight, precision, and authority. Aarav, on the other hand, felt like his own words were feathers in the wind, scattered everywhere but landing nowhere with any real impact. He was confusing being loud with being influential. He was giving away his energy, his thoughts, and his personal story for free, and in doing so, he was devaluing his own currency. The painful truth began to dawn on him. By oversharing, he had made himself completely transparent, and this transparency had made him less interesting. There was no mystery to him, no depth to uncover. People felt they already knew everything there was to know about Aarav, so they stopped trying to understand him on a deeper level. He was like a movie trailer that shows all the best scenes, leaving no reason to watch the full film. His constant talking was not building connections, it was building a wall of noise that kept people at a comfortable distance. He was everywhere, and nowhere, at the same time. The turning point for Aarav came not with a bang, but with a quiet observation. He was in a study group, preparing for a major exam. As usual, he was dominating the conversation, throwing out theories and anxieties in equal measure. At one point, he paused to catch his breath and noticed a classmate, Maya. She hadn't said a word for nearly an hour. She was just listening, her eyes moving from person to person, a small notebook in her hand where she occasionally jotted something down. When the professor leading the session asked if anyone had a final question, the room was silent. Then, Maya spoke. Her question was sharp, insightful, and cut right to the core of the topic. Everyone turned to look at her. The professor smiled, impressed. "That," he said, "is the most important question we've discussed all day." In that moment, Aarav felt a profound shift inside him. Maya's one sentence held more power than his entire hour of talking. He saw it clearly, his words were diluted while hers were concentrated. That evening he went home and made a conscious decision. He would try an experiment. For 1 week, he would adopt a new rule for himself. Listen 90% of the time and speak only 10%. He would not offer his opinion unless directly asked. He would stop filling silences. He would simply observe. The first few days were agonizing. The urge to jump into conversations was like an itch he couldn't scratch. He felt invisible, almost irrelevant. His friends noticed the change immediately. "You okay, Aarav? You're so quiet," one of them asked. Instead of launching into a long explanation, he just smiled and said, "I'm fine, just listening." This simple, unexpected response did something fascinating. It made them curious. They looked at him differently, with a flicker of intrigue in their eyes. Who was this new, quiet Aarav? What was he thinking? Suddenly his inner world seemed like a mystery they wanted to solve. By the end of the week, the dynamics had completely changed. In group discussions, people started actively seeking his opinion. "Aarav, you've been quiet. What do you think about this?" they would ask. Because he had been listening so intently, his response, when it finally came, was more thoughtful and well-informed than ever before. He wasn't just reacting, he was responding with wisdom he had gathered from everyone else's input. His words, now rare, had become valuable. People leaned in to hear them. He was no longer the background noise, he was the quiet center of gravity. His silence had created a vacuum that drew others in. As Aarav continued his practice of intentional silence, he discovered that it was a powerful tool for building genuine trust. Before, his constant talking often came from a place of insecurity, a need to prove he was smart or funny. People can subconsciously sense that neediness, and it can make them wary. But his newfound quietness projected an aura of self-assurance. He seemed comfortable in his own skin without needing to perform for others. This calm confidence is magnetic. People are naturally more inclined to trust someone who appears steady, composed, and in control of their own energy. This shift was especially noticeable in his one-on-one conversations. Instead of waiting for his turn to speak, Aarav learned the art of active listening. He would maintain eye contact, nod, and ask clarifying questions. He made people feel truly seen and heard. When someone shared a problem, he didn't immediately jump in with a solution or a similar story of his own, he simply held the space for them. This simple act of giving someone your undivided, silent attention is one of the greatest gifts you can offer. It communicates respect and empathy far more effectively than a flood of well-meaning words ever could. His friends started confiding in him more deeply than ever before. They knew their secrets were safe with him, not because he promised to keep them but because his entire demeanor suggested discretion. He wasn't the type to gossip or share information carelessly, because he was careful with all words, especially his own. Trust is not built on grand declarations. It is built in small, consistent moments of reliability. Aarav's reliability was his silence. He became a vault, a safe harbor where people felt they could anchor their thoughts without fear of judgment or exposure. Respect followed naturally from this foundation of trust. This principle extends far beyond personal friendships. In any group setting, whether it's a family meeting or a professional team, the person who listens more than they speak often commands the most respect. They gather all the information before forming an opinion, they understand the different perspectives at play. When they finally contribute, their input is strategic and impactful. Aarav learned that respect isn't demanded, it's earned. It is the natural consequence of demonstrating wisdom, and wisdom is often nurtured in the soil of silence. His value was no longer measured by the volume of his words, but by the weight of his quiet presence. In our hyper-connected world, we are encouraged to share everything. We post our meals, our vacations, our moods, and, well, even our unfiltered thoughts. We are told that being an open book is a sign of authenticity, but Aarav learned a crucial lesson. There is a profound danger in complete transparency. Think of your mind, your plans, and your personal life as a secure software system. Every time you overshare, you are giving away a piece of your source code. You are revealing your vulnerabilities, your patterns, and your operating system to the world. And not everyone who has access to that code has good intentions. When you are completely predictable, you are easily manipulated. If people know exactly what makes you angry, happy, or insecure, they can push your buttons at will. They can use your own emotional patterns against you to get what they want. A rival might use your shared anxieties to undermine your confidence before a big presentation. A toxic friend might use your deepest secrets as leverage. Being an open book doesn't just make you vulnerable, it makes you hackable. You hand over the user manual to your own mind, allowing others to operate you for their own benefit. Mystery, on the other hand, is a form of self-protection. It is your firewall. Furthermore, oversharing dilutes your personal brand. When you reveal every minor detail of your life, the significant moments lose their impact. If you share every small win, your big achievements don't seem as special. If you complain about every little annoyance, people will not take you seriously when you face a genuine crisis. You become the boy who cried wolf. Your words and experiences lose their power because you have flooded the market. Scarcity creates value. By holding back, by curating what you share, you ensure that when you do choose to reveal something, it has meaning and commands attention. Protecting your energy is another critical reason to avoid being an open book. Every time you share a piece of yourself, you are expending energy. Explaining your goals to a dozen different people, defending your choices, or processing their reactions, all of it drains your vital resources. This is energy that could be used to actually work toward your goals. Aarav realized that his dreams were not public property to be debated and discussed. They were sacred blueprints to be quietly and diligently built. Guard your plans, nurture them in silence, and let your results do the talking. Don't be an open book. Be a timeless classic that people are eager to study but can never fully figure out. Aarav carried these lessons into his professional life, and it was here that their power became undeniable. He started his career at a bustling marketing agency where brainstorming sessions were loud, chaotic arenas of competing egos. In his first few meetings, he reverted to his old habit of silence. While others rushed to pitch the first idea that came to mind, Aarav sat back with a notepad. He wasn't being passive, he was being strategic. He listened intently, mapping out the conversation in his mind. He noted who agreed with whom, what ideas were being dismissed, and what unspoken needs the client had. His quietness was initially mistaken for shyness or lack of ideas. His manager even pulled him aside once, encouraging him to speak up more and be a team player. Aarav simply nodded and said, "I will, when I have something valuable to add." A week later, during a high-stakes meeting for a major client, the team was stuck. They had been throwing ideas at the wall for an hour, but nothing was sticking. The energy in the room was frantic and desperate. The senior director, looking exasperated, finally said, "Does anyone have anything new, anything at all?" It was then that Aarav spoke. In a calm, steady voice, he began, "I've been listening to everyone's ideas," he started, "and I've noticed we're all trying to solve the problem from our perspective. But if you listen to what the client said in our initial brief, their main concern isn't sales volume, it's brand loyalty." He then seamlessly synthesized the best parts of two different ideas that had been pitched earlier, connecting them directly to the client's core emotional need he had identified. He laid out a simple, elegant strategy that was built not on his own ego, but on the collective intelligence of the room. The room fell completely silent. His colleagues and his manager stared at him, stunned. His idea was not just good, it was brilliant. It was the breakthrough they had been searching for. From that day on, Aarav was no longer seen as the quiet intern. He was seen as the strategist, the observer, the one who saw the whole chessboard while everyone else was just looking at their next move. He was promoted twice in the following year. He never became the loudest person in the room, but he became the most influential. His success was not built on a foundation of noise, but on the quiet, solid architecture of observation and selective speech. Every journey has its trials, and Aarav's was no exception. A major project he was leading suddenly went off the rails. A critical deadline was missed due to a vendor's failure, and the financial fallout was significant. In the ensuing panic, a senior colleague, looking to save his own reputation, pointed the finger directly at Aarav. He publicly accused Aarav of mismanagement and poor communication. The accusation was unfair and based on distorted facts. In his college days, Aarav would have reacted instantly. He would have fired off angry emails, argued his case in the hallways, and defended himself to anyone who would listen. But the new Aarav did something radically different. He remained silent. He listened to the accusations without interruption. He acknowledged the anger and frustration in the room. When his boss demanded an explanation, Aarav didn't offer a frantic defensive speech. He simply said, "This is a serious issue. I need some time to gather all the facts to provide you with a complete and accurate picture. Can I present my findings to you at 3 o'clock?" His calm demeanor in the face of the storm was unsettling to his accuser and intriguing to his superiors. He wasn't arguing, he was promising clarity. He spent the next few hours not building a defense but compiling evidence. He gathered the email chains with the vendor, the project timelines, and the risk assessments he had previously shared with the team, including the colleague who was now blaming him. He created a simple, factual report that laid out the sequence of events without emotion or blame. When 3 o'clock arrived, he walked into his boss's office and presented the information calmly and methodically. He let the facts speak for themselves. The evidence was irrefutable and clearly showed where the breakdown had occurred and that Aarav had in fact flagged the risk weeks earlier. His silence in the initial meeting had been his most powerful weapon. By not engaging in a public shouting match, he had preserved his dignity and projected confidence. He showed that he was not afraid of the truth. An emotional defensive outburst would have made him look guilty, even if he was innocent. His calm, measured response demonstrated leadership and integrity. His boss not only cleared his name but offered a formal apology. His accuser lost all credibility. Aarav learned that in a crisis your character is not defined by the accusations against you but by the composure with which you respond. Silence allows you to rise above the chaos and let the truth be your only advocate. One of the most profound shifts in Aarav's life was his approach to giving advice. The old Aarav was an advice machine, dispensing his opinions on everything from relationships to career choices, whether they were solicited or not. He genuinely wanted to help, but he failed to realize that unsolicited advice is often perceived as criticism. It devalues the other person's ability to solve their own problems. People would nod politely, but they rarely acted on his suggestions because the advice felt cheap, like a free newspaper full of headlines but no real substance. It was given so freely that it had no perceived worth. The new Aarav adopted a simple but powerful rule: only give advice when it is explicitly asked for. When friends came to him with problems, he learned to stop talking and start asking questions. Instead of saying, "Here's what you should do," he would ask, "What do you think your options are?" or "How did that make you feel?" This simple change was transformative. It empowered people to find their own solutions, and it made them feel respected and capable. He was no longer a fixer. He was a facilitator of their own wisdom. He guided them to their own conclusions, which is infinitely more powerful than handing them a pre-packaged answer. On the rare occasions when someone directly asked, "Aarav, what do you think I should do?" he would pause. This pause was significant. It communicated that he was taking their question seriously and giving it deep thought. He wasn't just firing off a canned response. When he finally spoke, his words were few, but they were potent. They were distilled, thoughtful, and tailored to the specific person and their situation. Because his advice was now a scarce resource, it became incredibly valuable. People listened intently, they wrote it down, they treasured it. His words carried the weight of his silence. This principle is a cornerstone of true influence. People don't value what is always available. They value what is rare and earned. When you reserve your opinion, you signal that you don't need to prove your intelligence. Your silence implies confidence. When you do choose to share your perspective, it lands with incredible force. Think of a wise elder or a respected mentor. They do not chatter, they observe, they listen, and when they speak, their words have the power to change the course of a life. Aarav learned to be that person. He learned